Hi YouTube, Darth here. This is what you've been waiting for with the updates from the CTE in the last few weeks. The community map is finally here. I've kept my coverage of it pretty light up until now because I didn't want to cover undue speculation and I have my own strong opinions about map design. But that changes today as we have the first iteration of the community map on the CTE. So let's take an in-depth look at what we got. The first thing you'll notice is that the map is a grayscale representation of the layout that was selected from the community map polls. Based on those opinion polls, the final map choice was a jungle map with 5 separate points: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. The map itself is pretty symmetrical and all the points are roughly even distances from each other. The US team spawns in the northwest corner and the Russian team spawns in the southeast corner. Right now, the map looks pretty sparse because it would be silly for a developer to spend time hand-placing every rock and tree when at this phase of the game we should be looking at the broader strokes. How does the overall layout feel? Are there things appropriately spaced apart? What does the pace feel like? Do we like the overall flow of the map? These are the questions we should be answering. It's not pretty, but it's not meant to be pretty as we're supposed to tear apart what we don't like and make it better. Now I'll go over each point on the map with a little bit of detail. Alpha is currently just a courtyard, but according to the prescribed layout, this will be the future site of a medical clinic. Sounds a bit like a coming soon billboard, and we'll have to see what this area of the map ends up being. Currently, its walls make for difficult access from tanks, and it might be interesting to see the medical building from Dawnbreaker and Lankang Dam make an appearance here. There isn't a lot to the point currently, so to see this built up a bit more would be a neat change, and I'd love to see it be an infantry-centric point. Bravo is labeled as the waterfall, and I have to say that this is definitely the coolest landmark of the otherwise all-gray map. Unfortunately, none of the gameplay seems to draw attention to the fact that there is a waterfall, and I went my entire first game without even noticing the thing was there until the end screen. Personally, I'd like to see an inlet underneath the waterfall like on Lost Islands from Naval Strike. I think putting the waterfall front and center would make for a more interesting capture point. As is, the clashes here pretty much revolve around which team can clamber up the nearby hills. Charlie is the main attraction of the map. It's where the majority of the battles are going to take place on this map. It feels like Hainan's Hotel as its front and center between the 4 points. It has a really good drawing power and it's clear the developers want this to be the conflict point of the map. However, I think the spawn points, hard to judge destructibility, and the flow of the point are a few passes away from being a good indicator of a pivot point on the map. One of the primary goals of the community map project is a map that is highly destructible. Once the cover is gone from Charlie, and it's going to be gone pretty quickly in this prototype, there really isn't anywhere to take the point from, and it's essentially a bucket with snipers spawning on the outskirts with full visibility of the center. Because the Russian team presently spawns in the overlooking hills, they have a fairly easy time of defending the point. I'm also not sure about the flow into this point, but I think with a few more revisions the terrain will get a bit more detailed. Currently it feels like a bit of a jumble. Delta is listed as a logging camp, and Dice LA has delivered us the bare bones of a logging camp. I think the spawn points are a little unfair to defenders right now, as you'll pretty much spawn in full sight of any attacking player since there is no cover on the outskirts of the point. In a future version, I'd like to see this point get fenced in, a bit like the logging camp on Operation Hammerhead. That would provide a way for defenders and attackers to at least have a clue about where the other players are coming from. Echo is presently another sparse point. On the proposed layout, it's listed as a jungle clearing, but it's really just as clear as any other part of the map. So it's really hard to evaluate how this point will offer different gameplay from the rest of the experience since the entire map is presently blank. In my mind's eye, this point is like Delta from Rogue Transmission, where we have this clear area surrounded by defensible clutter on the perimeter. So that's pretty much the layout of the current map. From gameplay experience, I can tell you that this map feels pretty enormous. There's quite a bit of distance between every point, and there's definitely a cost paid and time to get from one point to the next. I can definitely see how players are going to have to make choices about a handful of points to defend and keep transportation nearby. If you've seen my previous videos, you know how I feel about large maps like this and how I think it hurts the overall pace of the game. Given that this is an infantry-centric map, I don't think it would hurt to bring in the capture points from where they are located, but I think it's worth exploring the feel over the next few iterations to see how the current layout plays out. Give us enough transportation and enough clutter, and it probably won't matter that the map is enormous. But presently, there are huge swaths of open terrain that are just completely unused and are irrelevant to gameplay. Why even have them? Overall, I think this is a great first step for the community map project. Players need to get in, get the feel of the map, and give feedback. My favorite things about the new map are the focus on infantry gameplay, the unique jungle feel to the map, or at least what will be a unique jungle feel, and that there are only transportation vehicles and 2 tanks. It's really refreshing to have a map that doesn't need to be vehicle heavy, and I really would prefer air vehicles stay away from this map. Given the infantry-centric nature of this map and the need for transportation, I might even opt to change those tanks to infantry fighting vehicles instead. As for things I'm not terribly thrilled about with the current direction, it's a big map and I think I've spoken my piece on that topic. Furthermore, there's a critical lack of cover on the map, but I'm sure that this is because the map is a basic layout. Let's just not get attached to having no clutter as we move into the next phase of the map. Finally, the cool looking landmark on the map, the waterfall, receives absolutely no gameplay attention. But as I said, I'm thrilled to be playing on the map that we as a community get to shape the direction. So be sure to play it on the CTE if you have premium on PC and give feedback in the Reddit CTE forums. Remember that this is an early pass and it's going to feel weird to play on a map that looks straight out of Tron. But try to imagine what it could be and will be in future iterations. It's up to us to make sure it's fun. Oh, and please no AC-130. That's it for this first look at the Community Map Project's first iteration. Let me know what you think of the community map in the comments below. If you're new around here, please consider taking a look at my channel and maybe subscribing. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time, YouTube.